Hi, I'm Phil. I'm here to share with you what it's like to live with end-stage renal failure. Now, of all the things that I've had to change in my life, there's only one thing that is as intrusive and as frustrating as having to dole out my limited energy supplies. And that is not dialysis. Dialysis, I get 4 days a week off. So even though it's not great doing dialysis, I get a break. Today's topic, however, is just as bad as having to stretch out those limited resources of energy, and that is dietary change. This video is about what I eat, but I also need to be careful about how much I eat. You may remember my kidneys are pretty big and my other organs are kind of crunched. If I overload my stomach and my bowels too quickly, then I do get backed up and it can be really painful. So that's always a factor in what I'm eating. How much can I afford to eat? When was the last time I had a bowel movement? All those sorts of things. However, let's get on with what I'm actually here to talk about today, which is what I eat. So as a general rule, my diet is controlled by what is known as a renal diet. Now, renal diets, it's not prescriptive, so it doesn't say eat pineapples for 3 days, then eat pomegranates for 3 days. It actually says, look, these things are easier for your body to process, and these things are harder for your body to process. So try and have more of the easy stuff. And a lot of the time, my diet helps to manage my blood test results. So if I'm up in something in my blood test results, then I need to try and reduce it in my diet. Just bear in mind that, as always, this is my experience of the renal diet. For other people, there are other considerations. When we started with the renal diet in our household, we thought we were eating pretty healthily already, and I guess compared to some, maybe we were. But once we started learning, Phil shouldn't be eating this, and Phil shouldn't be eating this, and Phil shouldn't be eating this, my wife became a super label reader and started reading a lot more closely what was on the labels of the food we were buying. And we discovered actually we're not eating as healthily as we thought. Great example. We would quite frequently, maybe once every week or so, buy a rotisserie chicken from the supermarket, already pre-cooked, so that we could just take it home and have chicken sandwiches, put a bit of salad in with it and so on. We thought we were eating healthily, but when you look at what's in the rotisserie chicken to process it, it actually was not quite so good, and especially for someone whose kidneys aren't working too well. So anyway, let's look at some of the main things that I have to consider. Okay, first of all, fluid intake's quite important. So before I started dialysis, I was having as much fluid as I can in order to keep my kidneys working as well as possible. So I was up to about, I think it was about 4.5 to 5 litres of water a day. It's not that much of a hardship at the time because I like water. But when I started on dialysis, I was told I needed to cut that back to 1 litre a day. And foolishly, I tried to do that overnight and I got really dehydrated and felt quite ill, actually. So with a bit of consultation with other people who'd been through this on the chat room I'm in, I worked out that a few tricks. So the first, of course, is to cut down my fluid slowly. The second was I was used to taking big gulps of drink, and so as I was cutting back on my fluid, I learned to take sips. I'm still producing urine, which means fluids going through me. Kidney disease can lead to fluid retention because your bladder stops working, and that may yet happen for me. And then fluid retention, of course, builds up the fluid in your body, puts more stress on your heart, leads to heart disease. So we don't want that. But because I'm still producing urine, I'm able to drink a bit more. So my average, which you can hopefully see on screen, my average fluid intake is about 1.5 litres a day. Sometimes it's a bit under, sometimes it's a bit over. The catch is, if I'm feeling dehydrated, I will drink a bit more because I need to listen to my body and know what's going on. And if I get dehydrated, it can actually do damage to my fistula, which of course I need for dialysis. So yeah, it's a balance thing, as is everything with this diet. Okay, there are 4 main things I look out for in my blood test results. Of course, they're not the only things to keep an eye on, but these are kind of like the key things in relation to what my kidney can't handle too much of anymore. So first thing, sodium, which is in salt, and we had a fairly low salt, like we weren't adding salt to our diet anyhow already, but you'd be amazed where you can find sodium. What can happen actually if your sodium builds up is you get more fluid retention, which is again causes heart problems, and we don't want any of that additional stuff. The kidneys is enough, thanks very much. I guess the big thing for me sodium wise was chips, crisps. They're kryptonite for me. I used to consume probably at least 3 big bags of them a week. I'm down to none because they're really salty, obviously, but they also contain potassium, which we'll get to in a minute. I mean, I must admit, if I'm at a celebration and there's chips on the table, I'll generally grab some and eat them because I still really like them. But obviously I've cut back from the extreme. Obviously that wasn't a particularly healthy part of my diet before. Okay, number 2, potassium. Potassium affects the fluid balance, the balance of fluid in your blood, so it can lead to problems regulating blood pressure and that sort of thing, so you don't want it too high. Potassium is in all sorts of foods. Potatoes is a big source, so they have to be double cooked now to leach out as much potassium as possible. I also no longer have bananas, tomatoes, avocados, or dried fruit, or fruit juice, all of which are fairly high sources of potassium. When I say I don't have them, I rarely have them, and I'll explain that when I get to talking about the balance of the diet a bit later. Chocolate is also a quite abundant source of potassium. Before we went on the renal diet, I would eat probably 2 to 3 large bars of chocolate a week. That's cut right back. In fact, I haven't had chocolate for quite some time. Until recently I started having a couple of pieces of dark chocolate when I do dialysis. So I have it with my lunch at the beginning of dialysis, so that the dialysis has a chance to clear any excess potassium or other things out of my body. Potassium is also controlled to a degree by the type of dialysis fluid that I'm using. So in the last year I've gone from a high potassium to a low potassium back to a high potassium dialysis fluid as my blood results dictated. Now it doesn't happen that if you're down on potassium immediately you make a change to your fluid. You need to see some sort trend, I guess, in the results. And I do, as far as possible, try and control my health using natural means such as diet. But, my kidneys are failing. They're not working as they should. And so diet isn't always going to do it. Number 3 is phosphorus. As your kidney function worsens, phosphorus builds up in the blood and then leaches calcium from your bones, causing you to have weaker bones, more likely to, have a fall and break a bone. Not something we want to see happen before it has to. So I've managed to reduce the amount of phosphorus in my diet to a degree by reducing dairy. So dairy's got a lot of phosphorus. So I generally don't have milk anymore. I have greatly reduced the amount of processed cheese that I eat, as in I don't have any. I do have a bit of yogurt, but it's plain yogurt, which tends to be a little bit easier on the kidneys. But the problem with phosphorus is that it's everywhere. So one thing I do need to have is protein, which we'll get to shortly, but protein contains phosphorus. So it's a balancing act. This whole diet is a balancing act, making sure I'm getting enough of stuff that my body actually needs, but not so much that my kidneys can't process it. So it depends on what type of protein you eat, how much phosphorus you're getting, and how easy that protein is for your body to manage, to process. Like everything else, meat in our house is generally cooked from scratch. The more highly processed anything is, any food is, the more phosphorus you're going to find in it, amongst other things. So highly processed food is off the menu. Bacon's gone. Funny story. I went without bacon for probably 2.5 years before I started dialysis. And then I went on to dialysis, and I had just a little bit of bacon with my brunch on Saturday, and I really didn't like it. So my tastes had changed. I've now gotten to the point where I quite enjoy a bit of bacon now and then, but it's highly processed. It's got a lot of stuff in it that my body struggles to process. So it's an occasional treat, not a regular. Number 4, protein. I mentioned before that not having enough protein in your diet can cause your muscles to waste away. And before I started dialysis, my protein was limited to white meat only. Red meat was just too hard for my kidneys to process. Now that I'm on dialysis, I can have some red meat, not highly processed meat, but just red meat. My body can process a bit better because of dialysis. So before dialysis, my arms and legs, you could see the muscles wasting away, and I actually got to the point where my arms looked like I was probably about 20 years older than I am. Since then, I've managed to put a bit more muscle on by making sure I've got protein in nearly every single meal I eat. Top of mind for me when I'm planning my diet or when I go out for a meal is, where am I getting my protein from in this meal? The catch, of course, is too much protein is really hard for your kidneys to process. So it's a balancing trick. And then, of course, there's the phosphorus angle as well. But I do keep an eye out to make sure I'm getting protein for every meal. When it comes to protein, I also have 1 drink of Nepro a day. So Nepro is a specially produced protein drink for people who are on dialysis. It includes a few other things, but it helps your body to absorb a bit more of things that your kidneys or the dialysis might remove from your system. When I first started on the renal diet, I was a lot stricter on myself than I am now. I stayed really strict right up until I started dialysis. And I do work as hard as I can to look after my body, to extend my life as long as I can with this condition. But the point of extending my life is I want to enjoy it. And sometimes that means eating something that my body may not appreciate, but I can enjoy the taste of. I was going to say something I shouldn't, but there is no should and shouldn't. Like I said, this isn't prescriptive at all. Rather than should and shouldn't, it's easy to process and not so easy to process. And that's the thing, dialysis is doing some of the work that my kidney can't, but I don't want to overtax the treatment either, because the treatment's keeping me alive and I want it to be able to do its job efficiently. However, sometimes I go way off base. And example, we went out to lunch a few weeks ago and I had a blat, which was really nice. But the ingredients are not something that my body finds easy to process. So bacon is a no-no. Lettuce is okay. Avocado is a no-no. And tomato is a no-no. But I've got to tell you, I really enjoyed that lunch. But it's not something I'll be doing again in a hurry. Whenever I eat, I'm thinking about what can my body process? What did my last blood test say? What are my next blood tests going to say when I eat this? And of course, the whole not wanting to get backed up is also on my mind. So eating requires quite a bit of thought for me. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. If you enjoyed it or found it interesting, I'd appreciate it if you could hit like. If you want to know more about what it's like living with end-stage renal failure, then go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.